Excel 2016, Module 8, Part 7. In this segment, we will be working with the conditionally summarizing formulas. So we're going to be using COUNTIF, SUMIF, and AVERAGEIF. Now it's important to remember that you want to select the function that says IF, not IFS. We will not be using the second one in class. All right, so the COUNTIF, this one is going to look at a range of data, and it's going to count if the record meets a certain criteria. So in our example, we are going to use the data in the employee table. So we're going to go to employee data. We're going to be entering the formulas over here on employee analysis. But let's look at the employee data. We want to count the records if they are in a certain store. So let's say for our first formula, we're looking for the store of Bonham. I'm going to have it search. It's going to go down these stores and it's going to say, it's Bonham, yes, count it, no, don't. So it's going to go 1, no, 2, no, 3, no, 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 4, and it's going to continue down through all of the employees, counting only those that have the store that matches what we specify. So we're just going to start with that one. When we look at that formula, it has a field, a parameter called range. Where are you looking for the store? So you're going to come over here and pick the store column and say, I want you to look at the store column, rows H2 through H101, I believe it is. And then it wants to know the next field, the next parameter is the criteria. What are you trying to look for? In our example, I said I was looking for Bonham. So I'm going to tell it Bonham. So let's take a look at how we can make that work. So I'm going to come here on the employee analysis. I'm going to add next to location, that is store. And I'm going to try to do the COUNTIF formula. Now, over on the Formula tab, one of the things is I can look through all these buttons to find it. If I don't remember where it is, I can click on Insert a Function. It's going to open up this dialog box, and I can go ahead and type in either the name of a function or a description of it. I know the name is COUNTIF. I just don't know where to look for it. So I type that in and click Go, and it comes up and it brings a bunch of options up that it thinks might be what I'm looking for. We're going to choose COUNTIF. Okay, so we said the range was the stores. So I'm going to go over to employee data. I'm going to choose the first store and scroll all the way down to the end. Next, what am I looking for? Now I could type in here Bonham and put it in quotes because it's text. But if I do that, then I cannot copy the file, or the formula, excuse me. Because if I try to copy the formula, then I have to change the criteria in every single formula. I don't want to do that. So instead, I'm going to use the cell right over here in column A where we have that information already typed. So I'm going to click on A3. I do not want that to be absolute because I want the next row to look at Bowie and the following next row to look at Garland and the next one to look at Graham. So I want that to shift. Now you notice here for the range, it used a structured reference. So because of the way we selected it, it knows that it needs to use that table, the entire column. So it will, that's the same as using, absolute. It's automatically using the same column, the entire column, when I copy the formula. So now I'm going to click OK. And it came up with 17. Let's do that one more time. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to insert functions. If you've recently used it, it will show up here under most recently used. So you can select it again. So for the range, I look over in my employee data and I find the column of the stores. It doesn't matter if you start at the bottom and drag to the top, or if you start at the top and drag to the bottom. As long as you pick the entire range, records 2 through 101. Then the criteria, I'm going to use A4 where it's typed out. And I'm going to hit enter. Now if I want to copy that formula down to the other two stores, you can see that filled in the formula. Let's see what happens if we do an auto sum. So the total, you can see, created, and it says here 100 records. So that makes sense. If I started at 2 and went to 101, that means there are 100 records. So that's another good way. If every single location option is listed in your table, then doing a quick total at the bottom is a good way to make sure that your data is correct. All right. Now we're going to look at the next function, which is SUMIF. Now the important thing I want you to remember about both SUMIF and AVERAGEIF is if you look at the first two parameters of each of them, they say range and criteria. And if you look at the first two parameters of the COUNTIF, they are the same two, range and criteria. That should tell you that they are the same thing. So if you are still looking to add up something about all the employees at a certain store, the range is still going to be the column of stores. The criteria is still going to be the store name. The only question is, if it's a SUMIF, what are you adding up? If it's an AVERAGEIF, what are we calculating an average of? The first two fields are going to be identical to the ones you used in COUNTIF. So let's go back to our data. We are trying to calculate a total of all of the salaries at a given store. So I'm going to, again, go over to my Formulas tab, and I'm going to start out by using this insert function. Since I'm not good at remembering where that one is located, I can just type in SUMIF, type go, and there it is. Be careful that you do not select SUMIFs. This is used if you have multiple criteria, and we will not have that in this class, so you shouldn't need to select that one. So just be careful to make sure that you select the correct one, SUMIF. Again, you'll notice it has three fields. The first two are identical to the COUNTIF. So the range, where do we determine if the store is equal to this value of Bonham? So on the employee data, in the store column, I'm going to highlight from row 2 to 101. So it tells me, look at the employee data, the store column. Then I'm going to go to the criteria, and I'm going to tell it to look for the store Bonham, which is stored in A3. The last question is, what are you trying to add up? If you leave it blank, it assumes you're summing up whatever is up here in the range. Well, you can't sum up stores. Those are text. You need to have a field here that you're trying to add up. And it tells us in our heading that we are trying to add the total salary. So we are going to go over to employee data. We are going to find the current salary, which is in column J. Again, it doesn't matter if you go from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. You're going to choose column J. So it says employee current table. And it adds up all the salaries. I'm going to go ahead and do an auto sum down here right now. I'm not going to sum up the average salaries because that doesn't really make any sense. So that's why it's grayed out. Let's go ahead and do an AVERAGEIF. I'm not going to do the SUMIF twice because actually the AVERAGEIF and the SUMIF are pretty much the same function layout. The only difference is when you choose one formula or the other, it determines mathematical function that Excel will do on the data. If I choose SUMIF, it's going to add them up. If I choose AVERAGEIF, so I'm going to insert the functions and type in AVERAGEIF, Again, be careful not to choose the S one. If I choose average if, now it's going to calculate an average. So again, what field determines if an employee's salary should go to store Bonham? And again, I'm going to go over to the data and I'm going to select the store column. The criteria, I tell it I want to look at Bonham, just stored in A3. Again, if I type it out, I have to change it in every formula. If I click on a cell, then I can copy it and it will use the values in each cell. I don't have to type it out every time. Then the last question, what are you averaging? And we are averaging that person's salary. So we're going to come over to employee data and we're going to choose the current salary column. Again, dragging all the way down to the bottom. And you can see now it says use the store column to determine if the store is equal to Bonham. A3 is where it gets Bonham. And if it does equal, then use that person's salary in calculating an average. So if we take these two formulas and we can copy them down, and you can see now we instantly have an average, a count, and a total salary for all the employees at each given store. Now let's say we added some new data. We hired a new person in the Garland store. So just for comparison purposes, I'm going to take this row and I'm going to go to the Home tab and say copy. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do a paste special and tell it to paste the values. Then I'm going to format these as accounting and get rid of the decimals. There. So this is before the new employee. I did that so that we could see the change, if any, that occurs as we expand the size of our table. Let me go ahead and save our work. Now we're going to go back to the employee data. We're going to come here on 102 and we are going to add a new employee. So we're going to add 3,400 as the employee number. Their last name is Joplin. And their first name is Jody. They hired in on 4/1/2016. Notice it automatically computed the years of service for us. It did that because there's a formula in the cell above it that is referencing a cell that has the date and doing the math to calculate this value for us. The birth date is 11/15/1970. Notice it computed her age automatically based on the formula that was in that cell. Now we said that she is at Garland, so I type GA and it auto-filled the rest, so I don't need to do any more. Tab to the next field, PT, and the salary is $23,000. Now notice it's already got all these formulas in there, and it did not do the number formatting because when I did them, I did not do the whole column. I only did the actual data. So we would want to change that. Make all of these as accounting with 0 decimals. And we'll call this one also accounting with 0 decimals. So if you notice, since we had formulas in all of these cells, it did fill in all of the answers for us. This little blue triangle at the bottom indicates where the table ends. So you can see it did expand the size of our table. So now let's go back and look, because what should have happened is in employee analysis, our COUNTIF, SUMIF, and AVERAGEIF should have changed for the Garland store. And if you look, Garland now says 23. The average actually, went up, and so did the total. Nope, the average actually went down because she had a lower salary. So you can see that by adding that new record, because of the way we entered these as the entire column of data, and it used these structured references instead of cell ranges. If we had typed in there, if it's G2 to G101, then if we added a new record in column 102 or row 102, it would not have changed. But since we selected them with the mouse and used structured references, they automatically update as the size of our table changes. So that concludes Module 8 and all of the advanced functions.